Hi everyone, I'm back. I just wanted to start this video by saying thank you. I know I've just kind of started this whole adventure, and the support and love that I've gotten from you guys is absolutely overwhelming. So I thank you very much. I've been able to help a couple of people so far in giving them some advice and things that they're running up against, and I am so grateful to be trusted with that. I'm not, again, like I'm going to start every one of these videos, I am not an expert, but I am an ASD mom, and that gives me, I believe, a good amount of knowledge to be able to help. And I believe with the gift that I've been given in my son's expansion, I need to pay that forward. So, um, thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Um, I'd love to go over some updates for this week. I know a lot of you, just as myself, are very happy about the issues with the GOP and the fact that they pulled the bill to repeal Obamacare. And I cannot tell you how happy I was that day. That would have had so many detrimental effects to not only special education in our children, but their coverage, their outside therapies, and just as Americans as a whole, we would have been negatively affected. And while I believe there are improvements to be made, it's time to go back to the drawing board and come up with something that's a little bit more time intensively thought about. So, again, really, really good news. As far as updates here, things are going beautifully. My son is starting to put together two and three word phrases from our IEP that we just had last week, and he's excelling greatly. We're doing the same thing at home, trying to encourage that, and we did a lot of repetitive talk back and forth to try and have him form sentences, and now we're putting two words together to help him complete a sentence. So I got an "I love you, mama" this week. So it really good news, really, really great things happening in the household. It was brought to my attention that one of the topics that I'd like to talk about is early signs and symptoms to look out for. I didn't really have too much to go off of when Jay was born, and before we had our diagnosis, and it was really easy for me at that time to write off a lot of things that I should have been more aware of. So I'm doing this video to help anybody that was in my position when, before about 18 months. So I'm going to go through some things that I looked up and try and relate them to you through the experience that I had with Jay. We have some staggering numbers as far as diagnoses for autism spectrum disorder, and we only know those numbers from 2008. One in it's 1 in 68 children are diagnosed. The numbers are alarming as far as between boys and girls. 1 in 42 boys and 1 in 168 girls. And these facts are something that we can't ignore, and something that we need to be aware of with our growing children, to keep an eye out on the milestones. I always remember trying not to be labeled a helicopter mom, trying to let a child develop naturally and in their own way. But our ASD experience has definitely shifted my focus to be more present and not write off things to just a natural delay, that you have to be in the driver's seat, because early intervention and getting your child into the pediatrician to be able to get things figured out earlier is going to be your best tool. But let me go through some of the things that I learned, and I'll try and keep this video as concise as possible. I tried to do it before, and it was like 45 minutes. I'm like, nobody's going to want to hear me ramble on for that long. But I think it's some good topics that we need to cover, and if it can help somebody out there, I am all for it. Okay, so when they're looking for a diagnosis for autism spectrum disorder, they're looking for characteristics and symptoms in 3 key factors, which is communication, whether that's nonverbal or verbal, or in the means of lack thereof, repetitive behaviors, and sensory issues. So when we're talking about communication, we're talking about nonverbal and verbal. But before 18 months, verbal is going to be, a sketchy factor. You can have delays in verbal, you can have, there's a lot of different factors. But what I want you to look for are certain things that I learned and certain things that we noticed with Jay. So in communication, we're looking for being able to, in the early stages, a baby being able to coo. There's a lot of nonverbal communication as far as following eyesight. I wrote down some notes too that I'm going to reference to. I'm not trying to not connect with you guys, but I want to make sure that I'm as accurate as possible. So what we're looking for is not just speech, but communication. You're going to know that something's not particularly right when there's not as much of a connection with your child. I was lucky enough to have Jay's my second. My oldest, Bailey, I kind of referenced back to her when we were going through things with Jay. And this is going to sound insensitive, but I had a connection with Bailey. I had a different connection with Bailey than I did with Jay the first 18 months. Not that I didn't love Jay to pieces, but there was something that wasn't there. We were connecting, but I didn't feel like it was reciprocating back to me. So when I'd smile at him, he would smile sometimes back, but then it's like he disconnected when it was somewhere else. And you can notice when you walk in a room, they're gonna follow you around with their eye, either with their eyes or with their head. You can get up into their faces. They're going to grab your pinky or they're going to grab your thumb. They're going to copy your silly faces or they're going to copy your smile. And we just didn't have that connection there. And and I knew it too. I knew it when I first started because I already started to be like, okay, there's something wrong, but maybe it's just a different experience. Maybe it's just a boy. Maybe it's just how boys are. Because my daughter was very receptive, and still is. She's probably one of the most empathetic kids. I swear to God, that kid's an angel. But not to say that my son is not. But there was just something that set up a gut feeling in me that something was off. We had some sleeping issues and some dietary issues as well. I wasn't able to breastfeed. I had a C-section, like I was saying before in previous videos, a pretty traumatic delivery. But so we started him off on formula right away, and we had a lot of digestive issues, constipation. I think at one point we had there was issues with blood in the stool, and at other points there was diarrhea. There was definite digestive issues there, and as Jay got older, his nutrition seemed to go right down the slide, and I'll get a little bit more into that. But as far as dealing with communication, I wrote down a couple of key points. No joyful expression by 5 months. No back and forth sharing of sounds, smiles, or facial expressions by 9 months. No babbling by 12 months. And no pointing, showing, or back and forth gestures by 12 months. So when I talk about back and forth gestures, I'm talking about waving. If you're waving at them, same thing, they're going to attempt to wave back. You're going to get that emotional response that you would expect in smiling down and doting over your baby. Not to say that this doesn't happen, because we met a lot of good milestones, but we got to about 20 months and we had a regression. So again, we did meet milestones. We did have good eye contact when he was before 20 months. And then it was a slow progression. And I can get into a lot of reasons as to why that happened. From we had our MMR at that time and the DTaP vaccine, but there's a lot of different contributing factors now. As having that knowledge, I can't place the villain as just vaccines only. I know that's very easy, and I was one of those moms that would jump straight to that, but I realized that it's not just that. So the next area we're looking at is repetitive and restricted movements and interests. Stimming was a big one for us. My son tippy-toe walked not long after he learned how to walk. He was flapping, especially when he was getting really excited, he would flap his arms. We had, he had issues with wheels. That was his biggest thing. It wasn't playing with the toy truck and playing with the whole truck. He would actually at some points get on his belly, flip the truck over, and just spin the wheels, and he would be fine with that. You know, we went through this whole thing thinking we have such an amazing baby. He is so calm. He's so just a chill kid. And looking back on that now, that was enough of a cause for concern, because you want an interactive baby, even if that's, you know, throwing a fit or having a tantrum or doing this or doing that, getting into this or getting into not, you know, into what they're not supposed to be. And you want to be able to have that, because when you go through ignoring these symptoms and then you just set yourself up and saying, oh, I just have a good baby, that's not going to help anything. You have to be aware of their atypical milestones that they have to meet, and you have to be aware of the weaknesses they might have, so that you can correct them properly. And if early intervention is needed, that you can get there quickly. So again, the repetitive behavior or the restricted behavior, you're going to see defiances and changes of schedule. ASD children, some like to have things go exactly the same way every day. And if there's a change in schedule, that's enough of a reason for a meltdown. And I say meltdown because that's a term that we use in my household. So I'm sorry if that doesn't seem sensitive, but in our household, meltdown is just another opportunity to intervene and solve the problem. So when I say meltdown, you know, take it lightly. It's just a term that we use in our household. We never had any problems and changes of schedule, but we did have, and still do have, problems in transition. So when I mean transition, that means if I leave the house or if I go outside the door and I'm out of sight, then a meltdown starts. But that's really all that we're dealing with right now. But as far as, like, sometimes you'll get a child that even on the car ride home, if you normally go from school to home and you change it up and you hit the park or you hit the grocery store, that's enough of a change in behavior to start an overwhelming issue. And usually that will come in the form of a meltdown. So keep an eye out for that. I also want to talk about sensory issues. This is a really good thing to bring to your pediatrician if there's an issue with light, sounds, touch, sleeping behavior. These are all sensory issues. And when I talk about sensory, it's even touch. And I don't mean touch just in general. I mean, if there's a difference in the way that your child acts from mommy giving the child a hug and daddy giving the child a hug, then look at that as a cause for concern. And something to bring to your pediatrician. When I give you these facts, I want you to have all the knowledge that you can, so you can go to the pediatrician and you can display, hey, this is what's going on. I don't know why we're having these issues, and I want to know what I can do. When we're looking at these three key factors, and especially when you have that feeling that you need to make an appointment, there's a couple of things that I want you to do, or I will advise you to do. Get your cell phone out and take a video. If it's something that you have absolutely no idea how to deal with, get it out on your cell phone and take a video. There is no shame in this. You are helping in the diagnostic process. You are helping in the early intervention process, and you're helping in solving this issue. So get your phone out, bring it to the pediatrician and say, hey, this is what's up. And he'll be able to better understand something that's going on in the home, as well as the visit that you're doing at that present moment. There's only so much you can do in a half an hour appointment. So if you come to the appointment with a little bit more backing and a little bit more information, that'll give the pediatrician just as much or more to go by than your short visit. What can happen is that basically at this point, you're going to want to make an appointment with your pediatrician. And what happens at your pediatrician is they're going to be doing evaluation, behavioral evaluation, and you're not going to notice it so much. They're very subtle about it. But what they do is an MCAT screening. That's capital MCHAT. And it's an autism screening between 18 and 24 months. You can request this, and it's the doctor's responsibility to follow through. You can also go on, I use Autism Speaks. It's a website that provides me a great amount of information, along with skillsforautism.com. And what happens on skillsforautism.com is that you can go on that website and answer a bunch of questions related to your child, and it'll give you a game plan. It'll let you know what the deficits are, and it'll let you know where you need to go from here. And it'll better prepare you for that doctor's visit. Let's see. Went over all the pre-homework you can do in making yourself feel a little bit more comfortable. But what I really want to get down to is the fact that I made a lot of excuses when I saw my son going through early development. I blamed the nonverbal on the labor. Like I've said in previous videos, he had the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck. He was breached. The delivery was hours long, and he was a C-section. And it was just, I had every excuse in the book to say that my kid's nonverbal and non-communicative because he's delayed. There was an oxygen deprivation. I, for too long, went through an issue of thinking that he was hearing impaired. And granted, this was natural. Him and myself and his dad thought the same thing. His dad had to have tubes in his ears, and also, by the way, hi Jeremy. I wanted to let you guys know too that I want to include everybody in these videos, and Jeremy is all on board to having to get on camera and talk about a daddy's perspective with a child on the autism spectrum too. So yay, right on. But I had every excuse in the book. Why doesn't your son talk? Well, we're looking at apraxia. Why doesn't he respond to his name? Well, he might have hearing problems. Why does he jump and flap up and down when he's excited? Well, he's excited. He's such and such an age. Why not? But I knew something was off, and I didn't want to admit it to anybody, and especially myself. I didn't want to say there was something wrong, because I know this is going to sound weird, but I didn't want to have a child that had any issues. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to wrap my head around it. And I would change that for everything if I could. I was too stubborn and had too much pride to think that there were issues that my son had that I couldn't handle on my own. And I can't tell you how much I would go back and change that. As a caregiver, as a mom, as a dad, when something isn't right. You've brought this child into the world, and you'll know when there isn't a connection being made. And what I want you to know is that it's not that scary. It's not that scary to ask for help. The diagnostic tool that they're using now to diagnose ASD is so inclusive. They made so many improvements to it. It's called the DSM-5, and what it's umbrellaed is autism, PDD-NOS, and Asperger's syndrome, and it has basically umbrellaed those under the term ASD, autism spectrum disorder. And what happens in that event is that we're provided with more help. So a doctor that would have said your children has Asperger's, basically back in the DSM-4, Asperger's is now considered autism spectrum. So now you're open to more services, you're open to more therapies, you're open to more help. So please don't go into this thinking, if I ask for help, no one's going to help me. Because, yes, they will, and they have to. When I was going through the diagnostic process, and when I was going through our visits with the doctor, recovery was never talked about. I was basically, like I had told you guys before, we were given a diagnosis and we were sent home. But I wish I had known that there's actually a medical code, and I looked it up today, for autism recovery with residual symptoms, that put autism and recovery in the same freaking statement. And if that can't give you hope, I don't know what else can. When you get that diagnosis, you don't have to wait by the phone. Get out there and research. Find out what services and help you can get. There is nothing wrong with asking for help. You are not a bad parent. The only thing that dictates your child's success is what you do now, not the door you hide behind. If you think that there is something that's going on, even before it's 18 months, make an appointment with your pediatrician and let them know. Because they'll probably already do, as soon as the kid comes through the door. I made the excuse of, well, my pediatrician doesn't know my son. Of course he's not going to react to him. But my son wouldn't even reply to his name. I remember getting up in the middle of the night and watching my son sleep, and he would have night terrors. I would watch him, and even if it would wake him up or not, he would have night terrors in the middle of the night where he would just wake himself up. And I didn't look at that as a symptom or sign. I just kept going along with what I was doing because I figured he'll grow out of it. Maybe he's just not a good sleeper. We had the same issue with nutritional and dietary concerns. He wouldn't eat a lot of protein, he would eat a lot of fruit, but the carbohydrates were insane. He would have Cheetos, Cheez-Its, carbohydrates in the forms of bread, anything that he could get his hands on to munch on. He was a grazer. He wouldn't sit down and eat a plate of food. And I'll go into that more about how we tackled that, because I know that's a lot of concern for parents out there who children just won't eat. We tackled that and have been tackling that. That's an everyday thing. But we've gotten him to expand his nutrition, which has brought down the digestive issues, the distension in the belly. He's not as pasty, he's gaining weight, there's no dark circles under his eyes, but I'll go into that in a later video as well. So I wanted to let you guys know, if you have any issues, please message me, please inbox me, and let me know what your concerns are, and I can at least walk you through what we went through. Again, 1 in 68 kids. It's not a taboo anymore. These are signs and symptoms that you need to look for and be mindful of, especially with boys. If we're looking at factors of 1 in 42 boys, you can't ignore that. Again, please let me know. Please inbox me if you need support, if you need someone to talk to, if you're too afraid to go to the pediatrician. I'll talk you through all of it and let you know exactly what we did. It's not an easy road. And on a personal note, I am going to be going through this actually again. My daughter has been having behavioral issues since about the age of 5. Outbursts with emotion, temper issues, lack of focus, and I've been noticing more and more that when she gets overwhelmed, she starts flapping. So I'll be going through this with you guys too, and let me know. Let me tell you, it's a scary thing because now I have to possibly tackle having another child on the spectrum, and it's scary. My daughter and my son are my everything, but I made the change in the fact that I will do anything and everything for them. So while I know this may be scary, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid to ask for help. I'm not afraid to go to the pediatrician. I'm not afraid to go to our regional center. I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid to be geared up to go into these offices and say, hey, this is what's going on, give me an answer. Because your children are worth it. So again, thank you for listening. I'll keep you guys updated as far as Bailey. She's an articulate, beautiful, smart girl, but I have to be aware of things that I might be able to potentially help her with, because that's my responsibility as a mother. So please, if you have any of these little red flags that are going on, these little issues that are happening, even before 18 months when they can get that MCAT screening, take them in and let the doctor know what's going on. Because preparation and planning is your best tool, because time is not on our side. Early intervention is what's going to be the light at the end of your tunnel and your clearness of conscience. So again, thank you guys for listening. If you need any more additional help or questions, please inbox me. And thank you again so much, guys. Have a great day. Bye.